Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. We have a guest in camp today, guys. Feel pretty blessed to have the opportunity. Welcome to camp, sir. That's Brad Harper with Harper Growing Solutions out of Michigan. And Brad's actually traveling the country doing some dealership stuff, setting up some product, dropping some product off to some folks and in camp. So we were able to throw him in the tree stand a couple times, and we are going to talk about today, guys, kind of an introduction. I know I kind of lead into that and then let you run with it. We're probably seen Brad with John Comp at Northwoods Whitetails, and some new product lines, stuff that's going on in the liquid, the liquid limes, the fertilizer, and then we'll touch on your product as far as your mineral and feed, and we'll just kind of do a overview with Brad and welcome him to the channel. So yeah, I guess first and foremost, why don't we do a little introduction and let everybody know who you are and what you're made of.
For sure. No, I appreciate it. Super happy to be here, and it's exciting being able to kind of drive around here and never spent a ton of time, but being able to see it and obviously get in the stand. So I'm super excited and appreciate it. But yeah, I'm Brad Harper, Harper Growing Solutions. We're based out of Montague, Michigan, and we've been doing a lot with the liquid side of things as far as food plots. We got, liquid lime, liquid fertilizers, really helping a lot of guys with the chemical side, because one of my jobs, I consult for farmers on the ag side, and that's kind of my main gig. And when we seen a lot of stuff that we're doing there, we knew we could transfer it over to the food plot side to help a lot of guys out, and that's kind of how we came here. So that's kind of a little bit of what I do. You can find me on Facebook or our website. I'm sure Josh can throw all that in the notes, but that way, if you got questions, reach out, do what I can to answer them. But yeah, we're super excited to talk about like our new partnership with Full Spectrum Products. We took a lot of stuff we use on the ag side, and I was able to tweak it with this new line a lot more than I was able to do with the last line. And with how many soil samples we look at, I mean, it's just hundreds every year. You start to see a pattern a lot of places. And it was like, okay, hey, if we can tweak some of these products or maybe add this to this or add that to that, we're going to be able to do a few different things at once without having a whole separate product, and then all of a sudden now you're more packaging, more labels, and that price per acre just goes way up compared to if we can tweak those products from the base. But I think first and foremost, probably one of the bigger products obviously is the liquid lime, which kind of causes a lot of controversy, and you see a lot of products popping up the last couple of years of that. And when it comes to liquid lime, you want to look at what it's derived from. So there's some products that are calcium chloride, and that's not really going to do what you want it to do. The calcium carbonate, that's what's in ag lime, and the carbonate is what's actually going to do your adjustment of your pH. So that goes in the soil, that reaction happens because of the carbonate, and that's what's going to raise your pH. So when you're looking at liquid limes, that's the first thing to look at. Then you can do kind of a deeper dive, look at your CCE. I know a lot of guys that use Pel lime are always looking at that. And that's just going to kind of give you your lime rating of how pure that is. But that's the first and foremost thing, is to look at where it's coming from. Is it calcium chloride or calcium carbonate? I would try to stay away from the chlorides and stick with the carbonates, just because that's what's going to raise your pH. If you're wanting to add a cheap calcium source, the chloride is a very cheap source. So that's a way that you can raise your calcium levels in your soil, not necessarily your pH. Our second product is called Starter, and that's exactly what it's for. Help to push those roots early. A lot of phosphorus in it, so that takes away like that middle number in your 13 or 19. That's going to push your roots and kind of give energy to the plant. So that's exactly what that's for. Is right at planting, we're using that. And then for the most part, we're kind of done with that product. Just super easy. We want to push those roots, put some carbon down, and there's a lot of amino acids in that to really do a good job without having the salt-based granular. Kind of our main product, though, is called AP. It's all-purpose. That can put it on the ground at planting. We do our foliars with that. I mean, you can use it anytime, anywhere, any crop. We use that on our trees all the time. And that's kind of just completely taking the place of those triple 10s, triple 13s. I mean, a lot of guys for clovers, maybe you're looking at a 624-24. When you go to switch to liquid, that main product there, I mean, you could do everything with that product. A question we get a lot is like, well, hey, on the liquid side, the numbers are super low compared to the other ones. And yes, most of the time they are. But when you look at, like, especially our liquid, there's a lot of carbon in there, and that's doing a lot of the heavy lifting. So we actually don't need those higher numbers of the individual nutrients. That carbon is going to do a lot of heavy lifting because it's going to work in your soil, get your biology working together, and help to use what's there in your soil, as well as, like ours is a 1-5-10. So you're getting a little nitrogen, a little phosphorus, a decent amount of potassium. But when you put that side by side with like a triple 19, guys are like, that's crazy. You know, we actually seen better results. And it's like, well, it's not just those numbers that matter.
Yeah.
And that's something to really take into consideration. It's the whole product with everything that we put in there.
Yeah.
And then our last product is calcium. And that's, we see a lot of times like your soil here, like you need calcium. You got a really tight soil, something that maybe you don't have a high CEC, maybe it's even kind of sandy, but when you get a little rain, you walk around and you got 10 pounds of mud on your boots, and that's just tight soil, and that just means it's clay-like. I get a ton of guys that think that they have clay, and it's like, well, you have a low CEC, you just have really high magnesium or really high sodium, and that's where that calcium is going to play a part, as well as calcium is great for the plant and the soil. It does a lot of things, so it was one of those products that like we still had to have. And then at Harper Growing Solutions, I have a liquid N as a foliar. We use that a lot on brassicas, sometimes on switch, but basically that's all it is it's a foliar applied liquid nitrogen. So if you're not seeing any rain in the forecast with your brassicas and you don't want to throw urea or you don't have a chance to, we can spray this on top and we don't have to worry about the burn. Nice. So that's nice to get a boost there. Then our last product is Deer Detour. We use it on the ag side a lot, and we're able to, at least spray that on our crop, whether it be brassicas, soybeans. Some guys spray it on just all of it because they have so many mouths to feed, and they just can't keep them out. So, some places you might get a few days, some places you might get a few weeks. It really depends on what food is around. The main goal with that is just trying to get them off and change their pattern. So if there's other food around, and we can just keep them off that food plot just for a little bit, they might change their patterns for a little while, go eat somewhere else, and allow that food plot to actually grow up.
Yeah,
just to
folks
keep them
on the
off.
channel are laughing right now because I'm anti-fence, but Brad's been talking to me about that, and it's very intriguing. And there's some things that we're going to talk about to try to. It makes complete sense, right? My whole system is to try to get so the deer are always using the plots, but at some point, if they're eating you out of house and home, it's not doing them any good when they need it the most, I guess, right? So yeah, I've been thinking about that. I'm glad you touched on that because it's something that I've been trying to figure out. How do you? The fencing is expensive, right? I mean, it's a huge cost, and
then you're out there for however long putting it in, but you still have to go take it down.
Yeah,
and it's just I was the same way, and that's kind of why we adjusted that product, played with it for a while, and then brought it to market. Yeah,
and it's getting, my thing is like, we when we've touched on it before and here on the channel, but I mean, deer getting zapped by it, I think if they were to smell something and just deter them, what I mean? It's a total different world than getting zapped, and I don't know. I've seen that go south a lot of times, and like you said, not only are you out there, but you're actually shocking the critters. And then the biggest thing for me is I don't know how many hundreds of yards of electric fence I've seen wrapped up on critters.
Yeah.
So I probably that's the harsh side of it, But so yeah, I'm glad you touched on that because I think there's a lot of folks out there that would rather just spray and deter some critters for a couple of days or a week or if whatever that took to get that. That chance.
That kind of comes into your food plot strategy as well. Like we were talking with perennials. If you have some perennials or shot plots, and we can maybe just push them off our annuals for just a little bit, but you still have other food on the farm, you're not necessarily pushing them over to your neighbors, or maybe there is ag close by, and rather than them hit your annuals, that just might deter them to head to the ag or their destination a little bit sooner.
Yeah.
But it's just for that short amount of time. So if we're getting out there a couple weeks after planting, maybe mid-August, getting that on then, that's not going to keep them out forever. I mean, you get a couple inches of rain, that stuff's going to be gone, and that's the downside of the product. But at the same time, we don't want to permanently keep them out. We want to just be temporary. So something to play with.
Yeah. Good. I appreciate you taking the time to go through there. There's a, and I think you'd agree, there's a learning curve, right? And I think while we're on that, before we switch gears here, we've got it in parentheses because it's something I think a lot of folks have been told, right?
Yeah.
The snake oil term, right? Is it really what it is? How do you for myself included? I mean, when I started it, and I'm a believer now, but I mean, when I started it, and my clients ask me a lot of times, is just how can a jug do what a grain, a fertilizer buggy do? It's mind blowing. But I'll let you take that from there. But
so when we get to this topic, I always encourage everybody, go on Google. There's a ton of university research. There's a ton of third party research. If you look up calcium carbonate in a ton of ag lime, that'll bring you to a bunch of different studies. Now, it's going to depend where you're at to get that exact number because each mine is going to be different. Each load of lime is going to be different.
Very true.
Because they're taking that out of the ground, right? It's just nothing's consistent. But if you look, it's anywhere from 6 pounds to 18 pounds of calcium carbonate per ton of ag lime.
Okay.
So you're spreading that whole ton just to get that 6 to 18 pounds. So when you look at that, and like I said, look this up. Don't just take my word for it. If you're spreading that whole ton for 6 to 18 pounds, that's what's making the reaction.
Yep.
We have a 13-pound gallon. So we're, kind of just over halfway, but that's how we can do that. We're taking 13 pounds, I mean, you could say 12.x, and a little bit of moisture in making that a liquid form. And that's why we can say that it's equivalent to a ton, because we are, for most parts of the country, we're actually putting on more calcium carbonate than what they're getting in a ton of ag lime. But that all depends where you're coming from.
On a consistent playing field too, though, every time you order or get,
it's the same.
It's the same.
It's the exact same.
Yeah.
So that's why we can say that. And when you say snake oil, that's probably the biggest thing that, you can't fit a ton into a jug. But that's the reason why we say that. That's the reason why it works the way it does. Now, it's not exactly the same, and I don't know if that's some of the reason why guys use that term. You put ag lime down, and it takes a long time to break down and react. You're looking anywhere from 3 to 6, maybe all the way up to 18 months to make that full reaction in the soil.
Yep.
And with the liquid lime, because of the particle size and because of how that's made, we can fit that amount into the jug, but it's super small particle size compared to ag lime is very big. So the liquid lime will break down very, very quickly, and we can make that pH change very quickly, just a few days, maybe a week at the most. But once that gets washed in, that reacts, that takes place, your pH goes up. Compared to ag lime, it just has to break down and break down and break down. But then it's the same concept on the other end. So because we can make that change very quickly, because of the very small particle size, it goes away quickly. So it has to be an annual application. I mean, the more we do this, the more I see soil samples to where, let's say a guy starts at 5, and let's just say he needs 2 gallons an acre. He'll take a soil sample the next spring, and he might be at 5.2, 5.3. I mean, it's not every single time that you go back to 0. Sometimes, that's going to happen, but that's the downside to that product. But the ag lime, because it takes so long to react in the first place, that's why you get the few years out of that before you have to apply again.
I see.
So, like if you got guys that are super low, I'm still telling guys, use ag lime and then just supplement with liquid, because it's going to take you however long to get to where you want to be for the ag lime to break down. So we can supplement with liquid until we can get there. And then as you come back down, we can still supplement with liquid again until it's time to come back in with your ag lime.
I see.
So guys in the 4s, it's not worth spending all the money to buy just liquid lime every year. You should supplement. But where I think the biggest benefit comes in is because when you switch to liquids, you're able to put your lime down and your fertilizer all one pass, mix everything in one tank and just go and do it. compared to guys that are out in the spring with ag lime, and maybe you spread Pel lime and then you're spreading your fertilizer.
Yeah.
You might make 3 or 4 trips, especially if you're making a couple different fertilizer trips, because you have to put so much on.
Reducing the impact on the ground would
Correct.
be one, right? And another thing is fuel
Yeah.
saving and time saving, right? Everybody's time is worth something.
Yep.
Yeah, that's an eye opener. I mean, it really is. And when you think about a whole, like you said, the hot topic, I guess you could say, right, is the lime, the buzzword. But you take that buggy full and you look at what you're really getting, and you think about that.
Yeah.
And I mean, the way my back is, I'd rather mix it. But I'm here to tell you one thing that shocked me, Brad, is, and I've told a lot of folks this, is one thing that shocked me is there's a lot of product out there that when you hold that jug, right, and then you hold that jug, the jug, it's like unbelievable. So what are you really getting in a the other white jug or versus your product? And it's mind blowing. I don't know what that pound difference is, or I'm sure if it's a 2.5 gallon jug, it weighs X pounds, but is it density? I mean, I think you know what I mean. Pound's pound, right?
Yep,
but when you
completely dense,
it's just when that stuff comes out of there, and I've got some video, putting B-roll of it coming out into the tank, and it's thick.
Yeah, and if you think water is 8 pounds a gallon,
yep.
So we're at a 13-pound gallon. And a lot of those other products are like 9 or 10.
Oh yeah, that's a good way to think about
it.
Yeah,
we're able to shove all that in there, but I guess that's something we should touch on quick. It's the same thing with our fertilizers. It's a very heavy gallon, and that's because there's a lot of carbon in there. The lime is an extremely heavy gallon. That's because it's so concentrated. So that's one thing that using our products, you want to do a very good job mixing. You want to take all your filters out until you get a really good hang of those products. But they're just so concentrated that they're very thick, and you need to make sure you do a good job mixing. Always up your water per gallon per acre. The more water you spray with those products, the better, and that's something we always run into.
Good.
The other thing I wanted to touch on, because of the snake oil thing, there's different companies that take different approaches to the liquid lime, and when I say that it's kind of a replacement, I say that because I don't want guys spending the money on ag lime, but then just putting liquid out every single year if it's not a replacement. Because a couple of those companies say that, and I don't agree with that, because now you might be at a 6.6 and you might not need any lime, but they're still saying, oh, it's not a replacement. You just need to do it every year. Yeah. And I don't agree with that. I think that totally depends on where your soil sample's at, what crops are you planting. Then we know that target pH, and there's a lot of times where we don't have to add any, or it might be 1 quart or 2 quarts. And they're like, well, how can you do that with 2 quarts? It's like, well, we don't have very far to go for a pH jump, so we only need a little bit, or maybe you have some hydrogen still in your soil, and that's why some of those soil samples that show the base saturation numbers is very helpful. But I want to really point that out, because I don't think that's something that needs to be used every year if you are supplementing with some sort of conventional lime source.
Yeah, that's very informative, because, and I think there's just a lot of folks out there that don't realize when you buy certain products, right, that it's what are you really getting is one, the consumer's dollar today is pretty important. It's always important, but even more so today. And I really believe that if you see what a good product versus, there's a reason they don't ask you for a soil sample like we started, right? I mean, because it's just selling the product, and if you, like yours is, if you have it under control and you just have to adjust it. And what another thing with Brad that I found great was, not that you weren't a deer hunter before and you weren't a food plotter, but you're an ag guy, right? And not a food plotter trying to sell to deer hunters,
Correct.
You kind of are now, but a roundabout way. But I mean, there's a lot to be said for that, because there's a lot that food plotters, as much as we all think we know everything, there's a lot to be said for learning from ag, huge amounts, and that's what I've been doing a really, a lot of training on that side of things, because that side of the world has opened up. Of course, it's it's mountains, acreage to acreage. It's,
Correct.
it's maybe different per what we're planting. Corn, yields, extreme yields with soybean and corn, whatever the case is, right? But application maybe isn't the way of applicating is totally different sometimes. Big machinery and but at the end of the day, it's soil, right? It's amending soil that
Correct.
we're paying attention to.
No, that's a really good point, because that's kind of what I've been trying to do from the get-go. Was I kind of came in as, like you said, the ag guy.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, the food plot industry is probably 10 years behind ag, and I'm trying to make that jump, to make that connection, to be right there neck and neck with ag side.
Yep.
There's a lot of things that are being talked about to do on your food plots that literally 10 years ago was being talked about on the ag side. So the products that when we partnered with Full Spectrum, it was like, we want to bring the food plot guys right up to speed and give them not only the same products we're using on ag, but go through everything that we're talking about on the ag side and bring that to them too, because that's mistakes that we already made, but it was 5-10 years ago.
Yep.
So seeing those guys make those mistakes now, I mean, it just makes me cringe, and it's like, I got to do a better job of translating that to show them where we have come from on the ag side and make that transition. So I think that's very important.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so we're going to kind of go to the next step here, guys, but if you have any questions about the partnership Brad's got with Full Spectrum, right, get directly in touch with you. And I think we should touch on that. Where does it start? I mean, where?
Yeah, I think so. There's a couple different things, but if you go on our website, you can order a soil sample kit. And because you're getting it through us, we have some customized things that really help me do a better job as far as analyzing that and helping you. But if you get a soil sample kit through us, take your sample, send it to the lab. As soon as that comes back, I get it. I can analyze it. I normally have a phone call with the customer. Do you have any questions on this? Can I help you understand this better? And then we go down what are you growing? What's your plan? When do you hunt the most? Because then we can talk about seed selection. We can talk about all those things and really narrow it down to get you exact. There's a lot of times where you look at a lot of those samples, it's just like whitetail forage, and then it gives you that. It's like, that could be 10 different things. And I'm going to have a different recommendation for brassicas than I am rye and oats and wheat. Like, that's where I think we can set ourselves apart and do a better job helping you guys to narrow that down. But that's probably the first step for me. And if you, like I said, if you have any questions, you can get on our stuff, reach out, give me a call. But that's kind of where it starts, and then we can go from there and deep dive however deep you guys want to go with it.
Perfect. Good deal. Yeah, and I can attest for it. Brad, he was here. It's one thing to see or hear about soil. It's another thing to see it. So sometimes if being able to really study that, whether it's you guys are across the country, obviously, but sharing the video or really looking at what you've got. And Brad was able to touch and feel it here this week and really kind of open both of our eyes to some stuff about what we need to do. So really appreciate that. Second thing we're going to talk about here is your other business. He's a man of many hats here, but we're going to talk about the DLS.
Yeah, no, I think that's something that I'm really glad you got to see that firsthand this last week and a half. But DLS is another company, and there's a mineral and a feed now, and we kind of approached it the same way as we do with the fertilizer. We want very little salt and just nutrients. So when we kind of look at how we put this together, I guess if you look at mineral, most of the time there's super high salt content. Well, number one, that's the cheapest ingredient. And number two, everyone said, well, deer need that. Well, that's true, but not in those quantities. So deer have a shut-off switch to where they're going to eat mineral, and as soon as they get enough salt, it doesn't matter how many nutrients came with it. As soon as they get that salt, there's a shut-off that they're just going to stop. Basically, they're going to stop and go to water. But with ours, there's so little salt. We worked with a ton of different biologists and feed guys to figure out where that ratio needs to be for salt to where it's still benefiting them, getting them the salt they need, but we can avoid that shutoff switch in which you've seen. They're just gobbling it up. So we wanted to push as many nutrients to them as possible. And that's one way that we did that. The feed is kind of like it's an all-around feed. There's a lot of stuff in there, but we coated everything with our jackhammer mineral. That way, when deer normally come off a mineral site sometime in October, kind of depends where you're at. Let's just say October, they kind of stop hitting those mineral sites. They'll still come and eat that feed. And by coating that feed in the mineral, we're kind of accidentally getting that into their system. So it's kind of like a little delivery system.
Mhm.
So they're still eating that, and they can stay on that all the way till they come back to a mineral site. Sometimes it's January, February, March, totally depends, but just say March. We're able to help them through the winter. There's a lot of products in that feed that we did on purpose to reduce the toxicity of straight corn.
Okay.
You know, there's a lot of places where guys aren't feeding corn all year, so you just start in the winter. You can really have some bad issues because you start so late and you're just feeding them straight corn. So we added that to help that minimize the toxicity, I guess, percentage of that happening. But yeah, I think that's something that, just to put that simply, I mean, if you have questions, you can check out that website or call me. But I think just super simply, we wanted lower salt, more nutrients. There's a couple things in there that you've seen. It's still a very good attractant by itself, but then that feed is very well thought out, and we really played with those ratios to try to get that right and help them deer get through winter. I mean, with both the products, we're looking at overall herd health. We're looking at milk quality and milk production in those does, and getting those fawns on that right away and being able to keep constantly pumping that nutrition in them. I mean, it's something that I'll never say you're going to get 20 or 40 inches of antler. I'm never going to say that, but I'm not really worried about that either. If you're giving them good nutrition, that will come. I don't know if that's 2 years, 4 years, who knows? Maybe that's 3 generations from now. But I just want a good quality herd health. And once you build that herd health, all the other good things are just going to follow. Like, that's just going to happen on its own. So
Well,
that was our main thing with that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So Brad, like you said, kind of, being a deer hunter himself, and so you're a dealer for some other, you carry Northwood whitetail seeds, right? And both of these lines, and
and then I have a nursery as well. So we do miscanthus, we do spruce, oak trees, apple trees.
One-stop shop.
That was the goal. That was the goal. I got sick of driving all these different places for all my stuff, and it was like, wow, that's what it needs to be.
Good deal. And you're in Western Michigan, I guess, a Montague address, right? Yeah. So so we I appreciate the time to talk about that to the folks here on YouTube. Guys, I think I'm going to take a minute to introduce you to something here in closing. We are doing a new venture through Patron. So we are going to actually have memberships that we're able to do a little more lengthy videos and go kind of a deep dive, if you will, into some subjects. And Brad is going to be a part of one of those, or if not many of those videos. So the membership, it's Patron. www.patron.com/whitetail driven solutions is how you find that. And it's about a week away probably from releasing. So I wanted to get that out to you guys. Many different tiers for you. But we're going to be doing a deep dive on those products alone. Little more percentages and how-tos and what to. And then also the big Patron venture that we're doing is we're releasing what we're calling the training camp. So be watching for that. That's a kind of a 6-video series, and one of those is going to be a real deep dive. So yeah, appreciate everybody tuning in here on the channel, and I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us and belly up to the table and bring some. I appreciate
you having me.
Yeah, bring some of that. Bring some of that snake oil talk to the surface. I think there is some some products out there to steer from, and Brad's is not one of those. I've physically been using it here on the farm, and I'm telling you, it's good stuff. And like I've always said, guys, it's not a secret to me, and I publicize this is if you have a great product but you have no customer service, you don't have a great product. To me, that's been that dates back to the days of sales years and years ago. And being self-employed many years, and you have that service, that customer service. It means a lot to be able to talk to the person, and I'm sure shipping and stuff like that, through the girls or the office and stuff. But it's a whole new feeling than just buying a jug and not knowing what to do with it.
Well, and I guess that's a great time to let me plug this quick. That's kind of why this last year we made the transition to what we did. So now John Comp at Northwoods is actually shipping our products. So he's a partner on that end. And I had to do that because I couldn't package and bottle and answer phone calls and emails. So we had to kind of split off from that. He's taking care of that, but we did that just so I could make sure I did the soil samples on time, make sure I can spend the time on the phone.
Good.
And I mean, it made a big difference. So we did a lot better job this year, and that's kind of why. So if guys are wondering why it's not on my site but on John's, that's why.
Yep. So they can order it both places, right?
Nope, only order it on John's.
Only order it.
If you got local
yep.
guys or you got a big order, give me a call.
Okay.
Like I'm doing with the guy in
Yep.
Tennessee, bringing them a pallet basically.
Okay.
You can still give me a call, and obviously for questions. But if it's just a couple jugs, then it's order online from John.
Good. Yeah, which is Northwoods Whitetails.
Yep.
Yep. So, all right, guys. Well, I sure appreciate it, and we'll be seeing you here soon on the other videos. So look us up on that Patron. Give us about a week. Thanks, guys.